said the Lions won a game. Man, we going all the way, baby. We about to celebrate.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and segue into the second part of the podcast here with our guest. And for the second straight week, we have a Ferris State alum. This time around, we are joined by Corey Arnouts, who is actually a former Grand Ledge Comet. All three of us had the pleasure of playing with him. He's a 2012 grad, 3-year starter at defensive line, all-state his senior year, was an East-West all-star game selection. And then he went on and played in 41 games at Ferris State at D-line, was a second-team all-GLIAC selection, 4-time all-GLIAC academic honoree. Right. Pretty awesome. 2 GLIAC championships and a Final Four. Regional championship in his 2016 year. So coach for 2 years at Grand Ledge, and now he's refereeing. Corey, how you doing?
I'm doing well, guys. Happy to join you guys. I know this is the 5th or 6th episode, but I think I've listened each week, so definitely happy to take part.
Look at you, man.
Proud of you, Boo. Proud of you.
Look at you. showing love to the podcast. We appreciate it. So little self-plug here. What do you think so far? Are you enjoying it?
Oh yeah. No, I like it quite a bit. Yeah, I've listened to all. I mean, I like how you guys break it down across, high school, D3 up to D1, and then obviously with the Lions too. But no, I think I think there's a good whatever market for it, I guess, or people that are willing to listen. I know actually I got a group chat going with a bunch of my guys I played with in college, and one of them, Landon Grove, who's the head coach at Gibraltar Carlson, which is like a downriver school. He saw that I was on the podcast, so he pinged it in the group chat and everything like that. So,
that's cool.
So they knew I was coming on, or were aware of the podcast, even though you guys just got started here recently.
Yeah, well, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening right now, couldn't be a better endorsement than the one that Corey just gave us. So thank you, Corey. Greatly appreciate the love and that you're sharing it with the group chat. But
they knew about it. I didn't even share. That's what I'm saying. He knew about the podcast. So
look at us just blowing up around the state of Michigan.
220 Twitter followers.
He was one of them.
I love it. Well, we could have Corey blow smoke up our asses all day here and continue self-endorsements, but we're going to move on and talk a little bit about Corey. So Corey, Ferris State alum, obviously we want to talk about the national championship game with you, but before we get into that, going to kind of get into some personal anecdotes. Obviously, we had one of your former teammates on, Jaleel Canty, last week, and I know you know Jaleel pretty well. You coached with him with us for a year at Grand Ledge, and we kind of wanted to talk to you, just like we did with Jaleel, about your career, how you kind of got to Ferris, what kind of drew you there. Was it something about Tony Annese? I know that Tony Annese was a big reason why Jaleel went to Ferris. If you want to kind of talk on your journey to becoming a Bulldog.
Yeah. So obviously played with you guys in high school, which was a good experience. I think our best year was probably my junior year when we lost to Lowell, but that was it. Sorry, Corey.
My senior season would have beat that team. No problem.
Anyways. Coming out of Grand Ledge, though, like you said, played D-line. Recruiting wise, I got recruited by some of the GLIAC schools. Initially thought I'd go to Grand Valley because I talked to their coaches quite a bit, but then they kind of lost interest like the last month or whatever. So I was like,
they got bored with you.
It's probably based on my performances.
Probably based on.
They're like, that Brett guy, he couldn't make it here.
He's the average Grand Ledge guy.
He just tore a running back's ACL. That actually did happen.
Oh God.
They were kind of I don't know, not the best to deal with either, at the end, because I remember I got a call from one of their coaches, I guess I won't say who, but he was basically like encouraging me. He's like, oh, like, you're a smart kid, you don't even are you gonna play college football? And I was like, yeah, like, I'm gonna play college football, and like, I'm gonna play at Ferris, so whatever, like, I'll see you out there on the field. So it kind of came down to Ferris, or I got opportunity to be preferred walk-on at Eastern, but I wanted to, play at Ferris. And it was, obviously I liked Annese quite a bit. Actually, when he recruited me, he had just signed, which would be probably 10 years ago, almost to the day, when he, joined Ferris.
That's right. Because I think 2012 was his first season, right? Your freshman year?
Yeah. Yep. So he would have got hired just about 10 years ago. Exactly. And then I know he recruited a bunch of guys in my class, like, he sent me like a Facebook message or something, and then, like scheduled a visit or whatever. And then when I went up there, probably beginning of January or something, it was still like the old staff. So Pierce's staff, with Annese, and then like the following, whatever, Monday or week or whatever it was, they'd offered me, but it was like Annese had brought in a lot of his staff, which, and then honestly with Annese's staff, I think Ryan Brady's the one that recruited me. He's the head coach at Saginaw now. Sparky McEwen was our receivers coach. He's the head coach at Davenport. We had Nystrom was one of our defense coordinators, and he's a head coach at Northern. So we've had a lot of guys, there's been a lot of guys under Annese that have kind of gone on to be head coaches, and even like Steve Casula, who wasn't there when I was there, but he just got hired by University of UMass, I think, as our OC. So so he's had a lot of guys under him that have gone on to see success, which is cool. But then a little bit of a tangent there, but beyond that, so Annese definitely, attracted me to the program and everything like that. And then, joined my freshman year. And you could definitely there's definitely a culture shift, from by the time I got there, my freshman year, it was still, there wasn't necessarily 100% buy-in from everyone, necessarily. I know some of the guys that were kind of like the Pierce era still weren't necessarily 100% bought into Annese, and probably with his staff too, there was even like a degree of like figuring things out. Cause I remember even my freshman year, they're like, oh yeah, like we'll win the national championship, which we had talent. And what did we end up going 7-4? I got redshirted that year. I didn't play at all in 2012. I think we went 7-4 maybe, but we lost to Hillsdale, lost to Northwood last game of the year.
We carried Coach Pierce off the field.
I know.
I remember you saying that. Yeah, Kory.
Literally put him on our shoulders and carried him off the field. It was unbelievable.
I remember that.
And we went like 3-8. So
Wait, 7-4. I mean, even at that time though, that was, relatively compared to previous seasons, it was, I think, the best season in like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, I think they had gone 6-5 and 11, and then in 10 I think they had a 1-win season.
2009, I just pulled it up. Yeah, 2009 they went 1-10.
Okay. So then, 10 and 11. I know 11 was 6-5. Maybe 10 was 5-6 or something. Like that.
It was. Yep.
Yeah. So, there's definitely, still a while for the culture, the culture to kind of get there. And I think, Annese had a great deal of success at each level. So, it makes sense that they thought, all right, we're going to immediately win. And then, but, we still had success. We beat Grand Valley that year. I mean, Annese's scheme worked from the get-go, kind of the quarterback dependent, veer.
Yeah. I mean, you guys had, your freshman year, obviously Jason Vanderlaan,
right.
Is the same age as myself. And he went in at Ferris the same year I did in 2011, but then he had him for 4 years. He was a 4-year starter. I remember in 2012, he was a redshirt freshman and he was like this phenom in the GLIAC. All 4 years you were there.
Yeah.
You got to have him or the first 4 years you were there. I guess you were a part of that with Vanderlaan.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually like that first year, he wasn't even the full-time starter. He probably was by game 2 or 3. But we had a guy, was it Taylor Maswitz? I think it is.
Yeah, I remember that name. Yeah.
Yeah. So him and Vanderlaan were competing that first year. I think T-Mass had some shoulder issues. He ended up transferring, I think played with Zach Hess at Tryon.
Yes, I remember that.
Yep. But yeah, so yeah, we still had a good amount of success that first year. I mean, that, and I love those guys that were seniors that year too, but you could tell not all of them necessarily were 100% bought in and things like that. And Annese had brought a lot of guys from GRCC as well. So, that can kind of be somewhat contentious when you think like, oh, this new coach is going to bring all his JUCO guys and take all our spots or whatever. So, but the team chemistry kind of started to formulate that first year. And then through that winter conditioning, through the next spring ball and, early 2013, it started to kind of get better for sure. And then we had a defense coordinator, Lou Esposito, who's now, I think, the DC at Western, but he got hired in 2013 and he was our DC through that year. And then, in 2013, I think we went 8-3. We had a pretty good year. I played a little bit that year, maybe in 4 games, but we started off the year, we played out at NDSU, which was a cool environment out there.
I remember you guys playing there. That was crazy. That was a big deal.
The week after.
What?
We played you guys the week after NDSU. And
this is
gonna be sweet.
Well, and the week before they played us, they beat Kansas State, who's the reigning.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. That's crazy. I didn't even remember that's true. Because that was like big time news in college football that the FCS school, North Dakota State, they went to Kansas State and beat them.
Carson Wentz was the quarterback, right?
Was it Kansas or Kansas State?
I think it was
Kansas because Kansas was
no, it was Kansas State. They beat Kansas State. Kansas State.
I just looked it up. They beat Kansas State 24-21 the first game of the season in 2013. And then they turned around and played Ferris State.
Ferris played us. It was terrible.
Yeah. So, and I think Kansas State ended up being okay that year. But, the year before they were Big 12 champs. So, NDSU is obviously like at an all-time high. And I think it ended up being like 56-10, which obviously is a blowout. But then, I mean, you look at it like comparatively, they might have shut out 5 or 6 FCS schools that year. So it was like, all right, like at least we put some points on the board. I mean,
and they won the national title that year. They were national champs.
They won.
They were undefeated national champs.
So I mean, they were probably a top 25 team in the country, maybe any division that year, honestly, like very likely. But then that season we went on to have a pretty good year. I think we lost to Hillsdale again and lost.
You sure did, baby. I remember that game. We had no business being you guys. Because I think we were like 5-6 that season. We had absolutely no business being Ferris State.
Yeah, and I think
45-38. I just looked up the score.
Yeah, and I think you had kickoff recovery to seal the victory, right, for Hillsdale?
I had a pooch kick. There was a pooch kick that got kicked to me. I was in the second row on kick return, like the tight end spot, close, like 10 yards from the sideline, and they kicked it right at me. And that year we had one of the best kick returners in the GLIAC who returned one or two for a touchdown that year. So you guys were like kicking it short away from the whole game. And then the final kickoff, you kicked it right at me. And dude, you guys all know I played linebacker. I never returned a kickoff in my entire life at any level of football. But to my credit, I caught that thing and got fucking drilled. Some dude from Ferris State just about took my leg off. I remember I got up off the sideline, and the second I stood up, I went right back down because my leg just clenched up. I'm like, yeah, that's going to be bruised pretty bad. And it was. But yeah, man, you guys, right away from the get-go had kind of obviously 7-4 and 8-3 aren't, you're not winning the championship in the GLIAC conference championship going to the playoffs, but those are successful seasons. I mean, winning seasons. And for that to be the way he came in and taking other staff's, kids and recruits. And after a couple losing seasons, I mean, pretty impressive stuff. Did you think when he came in that he would be, I mean, obviously everyone knew the success he had in high school and at GRCC. Did you kind of get the feeling that he was going to find that success at Ferris? In those first couple of years you were there? I mean, obviously by your last few years, you did have that success.
Yeah, I think so. I do remember I played in the East West All-Star game, 12. And there's a lot of kids there that were going to Ferris, and like we were all pretty high on Annese. And like, just the high school coaches that were coaching that game were like all knew Annese. And so I don't know, there was definitely a sense when we were going in that like, especially for the guys he recruited that, we would be successful and stuff. So I think definitely for, the younger guys, there was always that buy-in, and even the people that Pierce recruited, like ended up really buying in as well. Like, Annese did a good job recruiting, but honestly, like that last like Pierce class had a lot of really good athletes like Jason Vanderlaan.
I was going to say, he didn't even bring in Jason Vanderlaan.
Yeah. Yeah.
I picked Northwood on signing day over Ferris. Fun fact.
Did Ferris offer you?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, they offered late. So I pretty much like the days leading up to signing day, I was like I already had my offer from Northwood, and I was like on the phone with Ferris, like, are you like, what's the verdict? What's the verdict? What's the verdict? And like Blake Simon and I were kind of trying to make it a package deal. And no, if Blake, you're listening to this, I'm sorry, I'm gonna spill the beans. But they pretty much said they weren't going to offer Blake. And then I was like, well, what are you going to do for me? And then like, we're still working on your offer. We're still working on your offer. And then like signing day came, and I was like, what do you got? And they laid out their offer. And I was like, I'm just going to go to Northwood.
Damn, man, you would have gotten a ring.
I would have gotten more than one, I think.
One. 2014 was the first GLIAC championship.
And I probably would have been moved to D tackle and played with Arnouts.
Yeah. What could have been?
What could have been? Transfer portal these days, you could have transferred.
I know.
Yeah, that transfer portal is crazy. It's like, it's just nuts.
It is insane. It is.
If you don't like what you got, leave. If the calf gives you diarrhea, leave. It doesn't matter.
Right.
I mean, that's a whole thing we could get off on for sure.
Right.
Every calf will give you diarrhea.
The Rock won't give you diarrhea. The Rock's pretty good.
The Rock is good.
The Mongolian.
Blake Simon got diarrhea at the Rock when we went on a visit, and he was shitting himself.
Should we have a whole episode ranking college cafeterias?
I think so. I think
which one?
Everyone's tied for second.
Which one gives you the worst diarrhea? Which college cafeteria?
Right.
The Michigan, Northwood University, the worst diarrhea.
Well, on that note, let's move on here. So obviously, again, you had quite a bit of success, especially those last 2 or 3 seasons at Ferris State, and moving on after you graduate, you did end up coaching with Kory Schraben. Kory, I know we got 2 Korys on the podcast right now, so hard to distinguish. Kory with a K and Kory with a C. Kory Schraben, myself, and you, Corey Arnouts, coached at Grand Ledge for a few years together. And, obviously I could sit here and talk about it, but I'd rather have you talk about it because I was there as well. But if you mind just kind of sharing, where you coming out of college, was coaching something that you had ever been interested in? Was it kind of something that just happened? How did that kind of go?
Yeah. So definitely coaching was a good experience with you guys for those 2 years. I know, obviously my brother was playing on the team at Grand Ledge at the time, so that contributed to me wanting to coach as well. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. It's honestly a lot of fun teaching the kids, especially like football I'm passionate about, D-line I'm passionate about. And, when you see them pick different things up and, just have someone there, like, especially as a younger guy, or, having younger coaches is helpful as well. Like Sean Stevens, who played at Grand Valley, during their title reign in the 2000s. Yep. He was like a offensive tackle, guard, tight end, even for them, I think.
Long snapper too.
Long snapper. Yeah. So he was my D-line coach for my last couple of years at Grand Ledge. And it was honestly awesome having him be my coach, position coach, and just going through, fundamentals and doing one-on-ones with them and hand placement and all that kind of stuff. Because, at the high school level, you're not always going to see that, where you have, a guy that was an all-conference performer for a national championship team and things like that. So, I think definitely I wanted to give a little bit of that back. And, be able to teach the kids some stuff and some of the nuance around, how to play the position and, different things like that maybe you won't normally get at the high school level. I think, obviously at the high school level, there's a lot of disparity in the type of coaching that kids get at different places, things like that. And even at a Division I school like Grand Ledge or other, large schools, it just depends on who you have on staff and things like that. So yeah, just the kind of the desire to give back and all that. And, it was fun hanging out with you guys too. So
we had some great D lines when we were there too, brother.
Yeah.
Very good. D-line.
Grand Ledge's 2017 D line. Pretty solid.
Yeah.
Everybody was all conference.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, we definitely had some, good, and to see them pick up on things and learn how to use their hands and be disruptive and get off the ball and all those sort of things. I remember, I think it was like Cal Riggs or something, like one game he's played the end for us. And me and you, Kory, were freaking out because he like finally realized really how to get off the ball and attack the edge from a DN. He got like, 2 or 3 sacks or pressures right in a row against, I don't know who it was, maybe Eastern. And so just moments like that, were really cool. And, obviously you want to make playoff runs and do all that type of stuff, which, we didn't do. We lost to Rockford and then didn't make the playoffs the second year I coached. But, overall it was still fun and just, a good opportunity to kind of give back, which obviously, you guys understand being coaching, and Vince, you still coaching. So, just, the opportunity to give back. And honestly, that's why I moved to reffing as well. The coaching was going to be hard with just work and different things like that. So, moved on to reffing to kind of continue to give back and things like that for the sport.
So Kory already kind of transitioned there seamlessly without needing him to say anything. So, Kory is now an MHSAA certified referee for high school football here in the great state of Michigan. And so now that you brought it up, do you mind kind of talking about how that transition happened? Like, at what point did you go, I'm going to referee? Obviously you kind of mentioned, and, the three of us know you, so we knew you had a whole lot of life events going on with getting married and a new house and, new job. I think you went back to school to get a master's. You had crazy stuff going on.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I did a lot of that in coaching and, obviously like, I was an assistant, so it's not like, we still did a lot of prep work and film work and all that sort of stuff too.
Yeah.
And,
breaking down film takes a lot of time.
Yeah. So it does. And reffing too, if you needed whatever, take a Friday off or things like that, it kind of offers that flexibility built in where it's like, if I take it's hard to take a Friday off when you're coaching because you feel like shorthanding these kids, right? Like, it's kind of hard to say, guys, I'm not going to be there on Friday.
I'm just going to skip our varsity game.
Right. Yeah. So it's a lot easier just to, put a block on your schedule and say, all right, I'm not going to, ref this Friday. But it was a lot of fun, or it's been a lot of fun reffing. I've been doing it for 3 years now. And, started off that first year, definitely not knowing like what the hell I was doing and different things like that. And just kind of picking it up as you go. And I'm still in the world of, reffing. I'm very much like a novice still. I've done, I don't know, a decent amount of varsity games, maybe like 15, 16, something like that in 3 years. Obviously last year was weird with COVID. But
that's still considering the COVID year, that's quite a few already.
Yeah. So it's been good. And it's been a lot of fun. It's cool to see the game from that side of things. I'm part of the CAOA, which is kind of the capital area officiating, organization. So they do a really good job. They have a lot of college refs, a few NFL refs that help us out too and do trainings. And we have rule meetings regularly every couple weeks in season. So, it's a good time. It's fun to be around the game, and honestly, just like being near the action, like on Friday nights and stuff like that is really cool. And, learning the rules and kind of the mechanisms of the game from like really that, that other party perspective, right? Like being a player and being a coach are, two things, but then obviously officiating those are the other.
Yeah. You have a different focus. Your focus is different.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's, it's cool. And it's definitely cool, interesting. Like I encourage, different people to try it out. I know my one buddy that played at Ferris as well, Brian Bell, he's a state cop in the area. I was just talking to him this weekend about potentially, officiating. So if there's anyone that has interest, like feel free to reach out or anything like that. Cause, I think one of the other points that Vince, you were bringing up is like, the officiating shortage, which there definitely is, currently, like there's just not a lot of officials. I know, like when I started, I think my second game was like a varsity game that first year. And I know a lot of other officials, like they officiated for 2 or 3 years before doing a varsity game.
Oh, wow. Your very first game was a varsity game,
or a second game. I did a JV game and then like a varsity game that Friday. And
that's pretty unusual to be assigned to a varsity game so quickly.
In the grand scheme of things, I mean, it's not like because I was good or anything like that. Like
it was just there was no choice.
Yeah. Like essentially there's no choice. Like, like in this area, we do 7-man officiating. So like if they try to keep 7-man crews, it's like, all right, we're going to put another body out there or whatever. At very least, like we'll train them up. But yeah, I mean, there's just not a ton of guys. I think there's an older demographic of, officials and stuff like that.
Yep.
And just like everything else in COVID times, like there can be labor shortages. And all that. But it's been a lot of fun, and it definitely showed me the side of sports where it's, you start to realize like, I don't think as a player you realize it, or even as a coach, maybe a little bit as a coach, but like, for kids to play sports and all that, it's definitely like a privilege, not necessarily like a right. Like, there's all this stuff behind the scenes with athletic departments and officials and, volunteers and all that kind of go into putting on these games for kids, which is awesome. But you don't think about it,
Hey, Kory, real quick, can you walk us through what it takes to become a referee? I've always had interest, but I really don't know the process to become a ref.
Yeah. Before you get into that, can you kind of talk about like for you personally, what drew you to it initially? Like what was like, I mean, I know you kind of talked about your experiences being a ref, but was there like someone who asked you to be a ref, or was there like a person that you were in contact with already, or did you just on your own, like decide I'm going to look into becoming a ref, and then kind of touch on obviously Brett's question there, but I think people would be curious to hear that.
Yeah. So actually, there's a guy by the name of Eric Willis. He's actually Spencer Cummings' stepdad. So I met him, Spencer ended up getting married, and it was kind of like an after wedding celebration type of thing. And I met his stepdad, Eric, who had been, and I was coaching at the time. And I think he recognized me from coaching or maybe playing too. So he came up and talked to me, and he mentioned he had been a ref for, decades at that time, just in the Lansing area. And just mentioned that if I was ever interested, I think he might have given me his number as well. And so, it's like, oh, yeah, I mean, it'd kind of be cool. And I think that, that you're coaching. And then, after that, I was like, yeah, I mean, coaching might be a little bit much as far as time commit, but I think, I'll try out officiating. And I kind of decided that in the winter, kind of communicated with Eric as well. But the process honestly isn't super clear. And it's probably one thing like as officials we could do a little bit better at is just like laying it out. Because I remember I called, I had Eric as a contact, but I called emailed the MHSAA, and, they got back to me and said like, oh yeah, like, sign up in this like in June or July or something like that. And so I kind of waited for a bit. I reached back out to Eric in the summer, and it ended up working out where like I figured out what I needed to do. And then, kind of going to Brett's question. Really the process isn't too hard. You have to register through the MHSAA. Most guys I go through obviously the CAOA, which is like the Capital Area Officials Organization. So that's normally the way you assign it. So there's basically things you have to do for your association. There's not too much there. And then, with the MHSAA as well, So, there's kind of fees and stuff at the beginning of the season. I think just your first year, there's some like preliminary tests and different things that you do as you start out, but they're not like incredibly hard. Obviously, it's like, you have whatever, you have the mechanics manual, like you have the rule book, you answer these questions, it's nothing too crazy. And then like, you want to get linked up really with like an association. And, there's other associations all around the state, and you can be a member of multiple associations to get assigned games from, multiple different places if you want to. But yeah, so basically go through the MHSAA, find an association that you want to join up through them. They'll have member dues and things like that. You'll have to attend a certain amount of meetings. There's like member in good standing status. So you have to attend a certain amount of meetings per year and things like that. And yeah, the first year kind of ramping up can be hard because you're like, what equipment do I need and things like that. So you kind of like realize, you kind of figure it out over time. And that's where maybe we could be better about certain things, but like, all right, I need, whatever. I need my outfit, my uniform, like pants, like a hat. Okay, I need flags, like I need a whistle.
So wait, do you buy all those things?
Oh yeah. So I guess that's a good point too. Like you're like a subcontractor, right? Like so it's basically on you, to kind of acquire all these things, which the guy who runs the association, Mike Conlon, he's a good guy. But he runs a store too.
Okay,
like,
so you can just go to him and
you can go through him. You can go through other people too, like Smitty officiating or whatever, like different provider just to get the stuff. But
so you're saying that guy runs like an officiating black market?
No.
He brings in officials and forces them to buy his swag.
No. He's probably like, dude, why is this guy talking about? No, why is this our representative? No, but but you have to acquire all your stuff, and then you get assigned games. So yeah, going to the first game, you're like, I don't even know if I have like what I need. But you kind of definitely figure it out as you go. And then, the guys, once you're on games and stuff, they're super helpful, like the guys that have been doing it for a while, like, the calls and stuff, you kind of figure out over time, obviously, like playing sport, you understand the rule book a little bit further, and there's specific things you're looking for. And like the mechanics, just getting, ball mechanics in and out and understanding like your positioning on the field and your responsibility like that, that's a big part of the first year, and different things like that. And honestly, like, for, the meetings and stuff, there's not a huge emphasis. There's some emphasis on like, all right, was the call right or wrong? But I would say more the emphasis is like, are you in the correct position to make the call? Are you moving when you shouldn't be moving? You try to be stationary to make good calls. Like, where's your positioning on the field? What are your keys? What are you looking at? Just like a defensive back would or anything else. Yep. You're keeping your eyes where you should, and then make the judgment calls. So yeah, but it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it quite a bit. You get to be around the action, which is super cool, and you get to learn the game. And everyone that I've dealt with is really cool too. You get to meet different guys, and occasionally whatever, we'll go and hang out afterwards, get food, get a drink, whatever. So it's cool just to get to know the guys, you get to know the coaches, the ADs, all that good stuff. So it's it's a cool little community to be a part of.
I just started laughing because you're like, yeah, it's one of those things you kind of learn as you go. That's not what you want to hear from a referee, especially Vince sitting over there as a DC.
I heard there's some hatred between Kory and Vince due to a targeting call this season.
Corey's first penalty was a targeting against Vince's defense.
Hey, I am going to be an unbiased podcast host, and I am not going to say to provide any commentary on any referees. I will not besmirch any referees in the state of Michigan live on a podcast air. Now, we can always talk outside of the podcast, but I'm not going to bring it up. But yeah, thanks for sharing all that, man. I do think it's very interesting. I think it's, as a coach, and I know you would probably agree with me before you even got into refereeing that, as an outside perspective, I can completely empathize with how difficult it is likely to be a referee, dealing with some of the people you got to deal with. I mean, obviously coaches have to deal with some parents and some certain individuals in communities, but referees got to deal with a lot of crazy stuff as well. And I think it's something you're seeing at a national level, not even just statewide, but a national level of, referees who are not treated very well by not even coaches, by parents. I mean, you sometimes see viral videos of like baseball games where an umpire is being like verbally abused by some mom or dad. So I don't know if you agree that that's maybe a contributing factor to the shortage of high school referees for all sports and all levels. But I don't know if you agree with this, but I think it's probably a concern. I mean, without referees, I mean, we can't really have these games. I mean, you got to have a referee crew to keep things fair and unbiased. Right. But I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. But
yeah, definitely. I mean, whenever I see those videos, especially at the younger ages too. That's what I was saying before. When you realize like playing sports is not like it's not a right. Like there's no in the Bill of Rights. There's no whatever. Amendment that says like you get to play
the right to play high school football.
Yeah, the right to play football.
It looks that way.
Yeah. But yeah. So I mean, people definitely need to realize that like, these are humans too. Like they're taking their time out to do certain things. And like, I made the comment about like, you learn as you go, which you definitely do. I mean, there's a good hierarchy of like making sure the more experienced people are doing the games they should. Like I haven't even done a playoff game yet. I probably will do some like next year because, there's credential or criteria to be able to do playoff games, X number of games under your belt, like all that sort of stuff. So they do, and then like in this area, we have 7-man crews, which is, as opposed to 5. So you have a lot of eyes on the field too. So they, the assigners, they do a really good job of understanding like, who should be paired up who and make up for any deficiencies that someone might have and, put a good product out there on the field. But as you were saying, I mean, yeah, especially at those lower levels too. I mean, you're getting guys that are just like trying to, potentially learn and things like that. I mean, being my first year, I did a lot of like younger 7th, 8th grade games, even younger games. And a lot of times those parents are like worse to deal with just because they might not have an AD to report to or different things like that. And they, whatever, you got a dad like doing his, whatever best like Nick Saban or whoever his favorite coach is impression.
Tight end, fullback.
Right. So,
at that point in time, their kid's still going D1.
Yeah. Everyone's kids going D1.
Everyone's playing Big Ten football
when they're 7th grade head coach. But yeah, honestly, like those can be some of the worst people to deal with because normally, for the most part, high school coaches are respectful and things like that. So, I mean, like I said, it's a privilege, not a right, and be respectful. Understand they're just people as well. And like, I know people critique refs at every level, but you watch an NFL game, you watch high level college games. I mean, they're good. Like they're really good, I'll watch it and be like, and you see it when they make mistakes, but you don't see a lot of those, what I mean? Like you watch whatever, lower level, obviously college and NFL refs are better in general than high school refs. So, and another thing I didn't realize, a lot of the guys can actually be the same. So, a Big Ten ref might do high school games and kind of coach us along and, be on a crew or different things. I mean, it depends on when they're traveling and when they're not, but you might have, or they'll do little kid games. You might have a Big Ten ref that's doing your son's 6th grade game and he's helping 3 other refs kind of come along. So, that's a cool part I didn't realize with reffing is like, you could have guys that, are, doing all sorts of different levels who really know what they're talking about. If you're talking about a Big Ten ref, or NFL ref, like these guys really, really know the rules well. Like they can recite the rules throughout, they just know everything like the back of their hand. So yeah, it's a cool environment of like just people helping other people learn. And yeah, I've enjoyed it quite a bit. So
good.
I appreciate you sharing that, Corey. I've never really gotten a firsthand perspective.
I haven't either.
It's really interesting. I could ask a million more questions, but I'm going to hold off for now. But no, it's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, anyone that wants to join, like, you can have different aspirations with it too. Like, there's some guys that are my age and have been doing it since they were, 18 or 19 or whatever.
Yeah.
And, they're already doing whatever Division II games and different things like that. And kind of moving up the ranks. I mean, it'd be cool to maybe to do college games Sunday, but you just, it's a thing that you can do. I mean, a lot of those guys that are doing Big Ten games, they're well into their 50s, and they're getting exercise, getting to travel, all sorts of cool stuff. Or even if you just do, high school games for a long time, it's a fun experience and it's something you can do while you're working and all that good stuff.
Well, awesome. Corey Schrauben or Brett Johnson, you guys have anything else you want to ask or add for our guest here before we get into Ferris State?
I do have one question. It's kind of a dumb question, but I've been thinking of it.
Brett, there are no dumb questions.
How nervous were you the first time you threw your first flag? Did it get stuck in your pocket and you didn't throw it?
How far did you throw it?
You launch it, the first flag you ever threw?
Not very far at all. So I think
you underthrew it.
Oh yeah, like it definitely took me a little bit to realize that like you're supposed to throw the flag to the spot of the penalty as well, which I didn't realize. Like I'm not gonna lie, my first 2 games I didn't realize, so I was just kind of like tossing it out there. And even
if I was a referee, I would be aiming for the players committing the penalties. Train.
Right, you're right. So like, I was definitely really nervous the first time, like throwing a flag, and even still, like you get like a little bit jittery and stuff like that, and make sure you have it. And yeah, like I said, you just gotta, it's hard. Like the hardest part is like, when you're like, you can't think about the last play. Cause if you're like, oh, I just missed something, or like, oh man, I don't know if I should have thrown that flag, then you're like off for the next play and you're just like behind. So you really got to,
that's interesting to think about,
and just really take each play on its own and react and do well with your mechanics and all that sort of stuff.
Crazy how much playing and coaching kind of translates to that, because that same principle definitely carries over to coaching and playing. Like right. you can't let your mind, fall back on the previous play, whether you made a mistake, did something right or wrong. Like you just got to move on.
Right. And then you got, Vince Cook in your ear behind. No, I'm just kidding.
Usually I walk by and whisper, "Hey, that's a nice butt you got there."
Right. Yeah.
So Corey,
we won't let the MHSAA know that one though.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So Corey, when you're a ref, do you rotate positions? Like you're a back judge one game, line judge another game, or how do you rotate around?
Yeah. So,
or do you flip a coin with the other refs at the start of the game?
Yeah.
Pull straws.
No, you're assigned positions. Definitely if you're doing like sub varsity, like JV, we might go into a game and be like, all right, like, what do you want to do today? Like if I'm with some older guys, and they're like, yeah, like I'm not going to be umpire. Like I'm not going in the middle, then it's like, all right, you're going in the middle, dude. And so, I actually got ran over at like a Williamston JV game.
Oh,
like,
wow.
I was just kind of like caught flat-footed. Like the first play was like a trap up the middle and just like knocked.
I cannot imagine you getting run over by anybody.
Yeah, just like flat-footed and just like, like fell over the pile. I'm just like, oh God. Like, and I hadn't umped all season, I don't think, up to that point.
I line up like this now.
Yeah. Yeah, bring it, dude.
You gotta have like a defensive stance, athletic stance, ready to go.
Yeah, you definitely do. But yeah, to answer the question, so sub varsity, there's definitely the rotation. I mean, you know, like I've yet to be a white hat and probably won't be for a bit, which is, you know, the head ref. So that's not really up for grabs at even a sub varsity level. You know, that'll be assigned. But then, yeah, varsity level, you'll be assigned, and like on your crew, you'll generally stay in the same spot. So like varsity games right now, I'm like a deep wing on either field judge, side judge, or I've done some games at back judge as well. I've done some games as an umpire. So you get the opportunity to rotate depending on what crew you're on. But if you're on your kind of main crew, I guess, then you'll normally stay in the same spot. They try to do that, but then definitely sub varsity games, they try to rotate you around to get your exposure as well.
I love it. I love hearing, like Brett said, the inside perspective here, the first person kind of anecdotes and stuff, because it's not something that the three of us have ever, dealt with in a firsthand experience. So yeah. Awesome, man. Awesome. Yeah. You guys want to add anything else? Otherwise, we'll kind of move on to Ferris State here.
I'm all good.
Zebra life, stars and stripes, baby.
Well, all right, Mr. Arnouts, thank you very much for sharing your kind of perspective there on your career, going to Ferris State, coaching and reffing. But we're going to move on to your alma mater's current season at hand that they just wrapped up. The Ferris State Bulldogs are the 2021 Division II national champs, beating Valdosta State 58-17. One of the most dominant playoff runs, I would imagine anyone who's followed Division II football would agree, in history, as was brought up on social media by, I think it was the NCAA D2 account, or was the GLIAC account, one of them brought up that in the final coaches poll for D2 of the year, that all 4 teams that Ferris State beat finished ranked in the top 10 nationally.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy run. And they beat all 4 of them by 3 touchdowns or more.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Insane.
I think it was 2 obviously was Valdosta, 4 Northwest Missouri State, or no, was it Shepherd's 4, maybe Northwest Missouri State was 5, GVO 7 or something like that. I think it was, yeah.
They were all top 10. Yeah. All 4 of them were top 10 teams. I mean, crazy. I mean, we have a few things that I'm sure all 3 of us will get into here, but as a Ferris State alum, how you feeling, man? What do you think about this? Pretty crazy.
Yeah, pretty crazy. I mean, honestly, I think it was almost expected to some degree. Like, we had been so close for so long. Like
rematch of the 2018 national title game.
Yeah, rematch of the 2018 title, which was, honestly, we talked about it even in my group chat. We said that game maybe even was closer than it should have been. I think Valdosta outplayed us in the 2018 game, and we had a chance to tie it up at the end with the 2-point and missed. But there was, I think we were honestly a little bit lucky to be in that game as much as we were. You had that tip pass.
I remember there was a lot of plays that went Ferris State's way to keep it close at the end.
Yeah, so we, it was a great team that year as well, and not to take anything away from that team, because that was a great team without a doubt. But yeah, obviously this time coming around, like, just a great run. I got to see them I got to see them play Grand Valley State. That was right after Thanksgiving, so I went up there, and yeah, it's crazy, like the culture change, or just like the culture up there now, like even the school and everything. Like, I drove from West Michigan, like Silver Lake area, where my grandparents live, and drove through like this snowstorm to get to BR. And I just, on my way there, I'm like, dude, there's not going to be a soul at this game. Like, it's a freaking snowstorm, dude. Like, you know what I mean? So, and then I get there, and obviously GV travels well, but there was, I mean, there might have been 5,000 people there or something, like just ridiculous, I don't know, students coming back, obviously, alumni, people just from around the area, people driving up from Grand Rapids. So just to see that on like a Thanksgiving weekend, when people are going home and everything, that was
especially
really
a weekend where Michigan was playing Ohio State, Michigan State was playing Penn State. You had all the state championship games going on too down in Detroit.
Right.
So for that many people to show up to that game is pretty special.
Yeah, no, definitely really cool, and just shows how much people care. But yeah, we played really well that game as well, handled Grand Valley well after we played them really close in the regular season, which I know that regular season game, I know there was a lot of problems just with the signals and hearing, because the Grand Valley can be that loud, especially there by the student section.
It's a wild environment. Yeah.
And I guess they're just going nuts, and you saw a lot of miscues and things like that, which is crazy, and it attests to their fan base, how good their fan base is as well, and how well they bring out. But yeah, no, that was, we did well against Grand Valley, handled them pretty well. It was really never much of a game. And then in the regional final played Northwest Missouri State, who I lost to in 2016 in the semifinal. So they're obviously a great program, and I think maybe
won 6 national championships. They showed on ESPN during the game that Northwest Missouri State has the most D2 national titles of any program ever. They have 6. Yeah,
and I think maybe 3 in the past decade or something like that. Mm-hmm. So obviously a great team there, and honestly, I think if I was doing the rankings, I would say they were probably the second best team, in my opinion, in Division II this year.
I would definitely agree with you. I'm sure Valdosta State got a pity number 2 because they went to the national title, but they got
I wasn't impressed by Valdosta State. They brought out that number 30 to play quarterback. The guy couldn't throw, and he was like a cheeseburger away from being a 3 technique. And then
quarterback.
The running back or whatever.
The running back.
Their quarterback was their quarterback was a former running back and tight end for Valdosta State.
Exactly, and he couldn't throw the ball. And so I was not impressed by Valdosta State at all.
Yeah, they weren't. I mean, and it was kind of very similar to the Shepherd game, honestly, with those games where like it was a game in the first quarter, and then Ferris just kind of took over. I mean, very, very similar. You had a Ferris fumble, a few mistakes that kind of allowed the other team to
penalties, some dumb penalties,
and things like that. And then Ferris really took over. But yeah, I would say Northwest Missouri State was the second best team. They always have a great D line, and just very, very physical. They had a really good running back this year as well. But then, very similar games in Shepherd and Valdosta. I think two high-powered offenses, both, really, really good quarterbacks in Valdosta. The Shepherd quarterback won the Harlan Hill this year, I think well over 4,000 yards passing. And so you could see each of their teams, like they had some offensive firepower, they had some receivers that were good and things like that, and had, did some things in the first quarter. But I think, with Ferris, like with Annese's system, the beauty of it is like you get up by a couple touchdowns, right? And you make the other team one-dimensional, and then, you can get after the pass, or you can do all these sorts of different things. And, you make that offense one-dimensional, and then it's really easy to be disruptive.
Your former teammate, Jaleel Canty, talked about this last week about how that's Annese's kind of, his philosophy, and defensively it allows Ferris State to just kind of go crazy as well. I mean, They run a very unique, we talked about last week, they run a very unique defense in the box with that 5-1, 6-1, where they just stuff, they have their middle linebacker playing by himself in the box at like 8 yards depth. And then they just load the box with D linemen, and they will have like their, star linebackers or whatever you want to call them, these hybrid linebacker safety guys who just sit ready for anything being spilled to them. It's a very fun defense to watch. And I don't know about you, but Jaleel was telling us how much fun it is to play in such a unique defense where, like you said, you make a team one-dimensional and you can really do whatever you want defensively. I mean, you can really mix up the coverages. You can start bringing a lot of heat. I mean, it allows you to play some more zone. You don't have to play as much man. I mean, you can really do a lot of different things.
Yeah, and honestly, the system's a little bit different than when I was there. I would say we were more like a 4-3 when I played there. I mean, they still, sort of are. But I think, and I think honestly, our staff or the Ferris staff took some of those concepts from Northwest Missouri State.
Okay.
But I mean, it's a great system, and like they had the players to do it this year. Middle linebacker,
you gotta have studs to do those kinds of things.
Yeah. The middle linebacker, Liam Daly, a lot of those guys, he was really good. A lot of those guys that played, I think there's maybe at least a dozen to 15 of them that were 6-year seniors, so that they were true freshmen. They were freshmen when I was a senior there. So it was definitely cool to see them, and a lot of those guys, like they mentioned on the broadcast, went to work for, a year and then came back.
I remember them saying
that linebacker was a plumber.
Yeah. So, Liam Daly and Sam Juradat. They were both out of like Jackson, Lumen Christi, but they went and worked as
laying pipe all year.
Yeah. There was actually a guy, Austin Simpson. He was one of their starting D tackles. He lived here in DeWitt. He for 8 months or something, he was working as like he's like a software developer or something for some company remote or out of Detroit. I think he was commuting. It was kind of just a crazy thing. They all went to work for a little bit and, kind of came back and whatever, made a pact and won the national championship. So it's super cool for them. I'm just super happy for those guys. And, it was cool to hear Annese say too, it's for, a long time coming. And, a lot of us had put in, the groundwork and foundation for them to do that. And, it's not like, oh, let me take credit for anything, because obviously
they all got cowboy hats.
They did all the work. Yeah, they all had cowboy hats, and it was cool.
They won them. It was a gift.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean the players?
Yeah, all the players got cowboy hats.
Yeah,
that's badass.
Yeah, no, that was cool. And the fans all had them too, and it was cool, like just seeing it all, and the fans came down to support. I know they had like 8 fan buses come down from BR.
They sold them out. They said that they sold out, which is insane. I was really impressed with Ferris State's turnout. I mean, I don't know if you guys have looked at this, but I was looking it up, and it's very interesting. Since they've moved this game to Texas, the turnout in terms of the overall attendance has kind of dropped significantly. Right. Back when it was in Kansas State, there was a few times where they had more than 10,000, around 10,000 people there. Since it's gone to Texas, they've only had 4,000 or less. This one was 3,900. The one in 2019 was 3,400. The one with Ferris State and Valdosta in 2018 was 4,300.
Right.
It's such a remote place to play
drive too, and there's no.
It is. It's not central at all.
No, it's on the opposite end of the country. If you're Ferris State, I mean, good for them that they brought all those fan buses down there, because otherwise, I don't know how many people would have gone.
And there's never many teams from the West that are in the championship, so I don't know why they haven't.
No,
but Missouri's in the middle of the country. Like that makes
it's
sense.
right next to Kansas.
Yeah.
Well, Valdosta State's in Georgia, but even Georgia over to Texas, I mean, it's not a short drive.
It's a drive still,
It's still a drive, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and all those games in Kansas City, I think, Northwest Missouri State was probably playing in a lot of those. So you had the entire university probably coming over.
They were in like 2 or 3 of them, yeah. So that was like a home game.
Right, yeah. So it's like a home game, and you're like, you're gonna go. I mean, it's obviously a drive, and like you don't know the week before. Like I had thought about going down, but I mean, it's kind of hard with that late notice and everything else. So like, so I know a few guys made the trip, and
Jason Vanderlaan was on the field for the win after the win.
Yeah, Jason went down there. Brady Sheldon, who was his class, was down there as well. Brady played in the NFL, and I think is playing in the CFL right now, or was this season at least. And then, there were some guys from that class and from my class potentially as well that went down, which was cool. It was really cool. It was really sweet. And I mean, they had a great year, and I mean, those guys deserved it. They worked their asses off, and a bunch of grown men, but they dominated. They dominated D2 this year.
Well, something I want to bring up real quick is just, do you guys? We can all talk about this. Brett and Kory and I talked about this a little bit the other night. Do you guys think that this Ferris State team is this good? I know Corey Schraben, I think it was you just brought up that you weren't impressed by Valdosta, but is that just a testament to how good this Ferris State team is? I mean, I think it's also a testament to the GLIAC. I mean, even Ferris State's 2 non-conference games this year were against Findlay and Ashland, who were for a long time GLIAC teams. So, I mean, they're basically playing a top to bottom traditional GLIAC schedule. And I'm wondering if this is just a testament to the week in, week out competition they're getting. And then at the same time, just how good Ferris State is, that they just dominated 3 powerhouse programs in the playoffs.
Mine was no intention of discrediting Ferris. Mine was saying was not the second best team in the country.
Yeah.
But I think Ferris has been good. They've been good for years now. I mean, what would we say? They haven't beaten Grand Valley hasn't beaten them in 5 seasons.
They've beaten Grand Valley 6 straight times they've played.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Ferris State is easily the best team in the GLIAC. They've been, since I've been in college, even practically, they've been the best team in the GLIAC. They're good. Just flat out. I think Ferris does a really good job of having a really, really, really good mix of like elite athlete and then also having like their core group of guys who are just like good, sound football players. And you just can't beat it.
I think, first off, I mean, you could almost claim them as a 2-time national champ. They're the only team that's won a national championship in Division II the last 2 years.
Oh, that's good. That's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, they could have won it last year had there been a season. I mean, essentially, it was the same team.
Yeah,
I don't recall any true freshman that made a difference.
I mean, we haven't even brought up Jared Bernhardt yet, and he originally was going to enroll last year until the season got canceled.
And I was reading an article. He decided to go out for football to honor his grandpa.
Or I think
it was his dad.
His
on the broadcast.
Maybe his dad. Yeah,
who just died.
That was the reason why he came up for football, which is crazy. Like, that guy is stupid athletic.
Yeah, we got to bring this up. I put out a tweet. We put out a few tweets on our Great Lakes State football Twitter page over the weekend about this. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I think this story with Jared Bernhardt is not only one of the coolest stories in all of sports this year, but honestly, in recent years. I mean, you're talking about a guy who was a 3-time All-American and a national champion at one of the best lacrosse schools in the country in Maryland, national player of the year. Yeah. Decides because of to honor his late father. His late father did the same thing, was a high school quarterback, played college lacrosse. I didn't know that. At least this is what they said to my knowledge on the ESPN broadcast.
I didn't know lacrosse was around then.
They said in the ESPN broadcast that his dad did something similar, then ended up using a final year of eligibility to play football. And again, I'm sorry if I messed that up, but to my knowledge, that was Corey Schraben. You can corroborate. I'm pretty sure that's what they said on the ESPN broadcast, was that he had a similar path.
I thought it was more of his dad was a very, very, very long time high school football coach. He was his high school football coach. So he went to go play football to honor his dad. It was just like the concept of playing football.
I want to say his dad or someone in his family, like they had a coaching pedigree, because I think, I don't know if it was his dad, but one of them was an assistant for the Texans at some point as well. So I know his family had like generally a football coaching pedigree, in there as well.
Regardless, it's freaking crazy.
Right.
And the fact that he didn't win the Harlan Hill, I get it. He didn't play in every game. And
yeah, he only played in 10 or 11 games of their 14 wins.
But the dude scored every time he touched the ball, and he made everybody else on the field look like they didn't know how to run. And it was just insane.
The first play from the offensive line of scrimmage for Ferris State was a 56-yard touchdown run inside the tackle box from Jared Bernhardt. It was insane. Insane. I mean, the guy, Kory kept saying this, he's like a cheat code. I mean, he's just an absolute freak athlete.
Yeah, he's Michael Vick and Madden 04. Verts run Jared Bernhardt.
Yeah, he's truly. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw this, but he finished the season again, only played 10 or 11 of the 14 games, 1,421 yards rushing and 26 rushing touchdowns as a quarterback. And he still threw for 1,300 yards and threw for 11 touchdowns. a guy who had never played a single season of college football. I mean, he played in high school, but that's just unbelievable, his level of talent and athleticism. I'll be curious to see if any NFL team gives him a shot, maybe as like a wide receiver.
Coming out of high school, he was the number 1 triple threat quarterback in the recruiting class.
Was he?
Yeah.
I think they talked about that on the broadcast on Saturday night, didn't they?
Option. Yeah. I know he was a decent recruit out of high school. I think it was just the fact that he was, probably one of the top lacrosse players in the country. I'm assuming even at that time. But yeah, he's a special talent, man. He's so explosive, and just the way he moves, it's like unique. You can tell that he played lacrosse because like he's just so comfortable in space. Like his understanding of space is like freakish. Like there was even some option plays where like any other quarterback would like pitch it soon, but he was just so comfortable, like getting so close to the defender. And then, just like obviously pitched it at like the last second. He was totally fine with it. And just some of his like cut steps and things like that are just like so
his
unique.
Jab steps were so explosive and quick.
He could join the USA tag team.
Right.
The Olympics now.
He's like all Galaxy tag team.
Dude, he would fuck some people up and tag.
Yeah, no one's tagging him.
Very elusive.
So I was just looking up his recruiting profile in 247. He was a 2-star recruit coming out of high school.
Yeah.
So I don't know. He wasn't the top triple threat quarterback. He was a 2-star recruit, which still
triple option. They said he was the top triple option quarterback.
Which
Okay.
I mean, obviously, triple option is not like the most desirable because you have like 5.
He could have.
FBS.
He could have been at Northwood.
Yeah.
He could have been at Northwood this whole time, and the tides would have turned.
The tides would have turned.
North would be Ferris State winning the national title, right?
Oh man,
Go Timberwolves!
But yeah, no, he's a great athlete. I mean, those lacrosse guys are great athletes. Like I know I read there's a Barstool article that came out yesterday, I think, that talked about like just Bernhardt and his story and saying like, oh, is Belichick going to draft this guy to be a receiver or whatever just because he's drafted.
I legit think he has. Someone's got to give him a chance. I mean, you can't not watch that game or any of the playoff games that he played in and not believe he could be a wide receiver. I mean, with that level of speed, elusiveness, athleticism, and he's physical, man. He runs through contact.
Yeah,
he can catch a ball with a stick. He can catch a ball with his hands.
Well, you have to imagine he can catch a. Yeah, I mean, like Edelman was quarterback at Kent State, right? So kind of could be a similar, and he's taller than Julian Edelman. I mean, obviously, Edelman.
Yeah, I think Bernhardt's 6'1" or 6'2", something like that.
Yeah. So no, I mean, definitely, and yeah, I saw that Barstool article talked also about like the player of the year in lacrosse the year before Bernhardt. He went on to be. He's like the whatever in the NBA. What is it? The G League or the D League? Whatever.
G-League.
What's the
G League?
G League? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, he's like doing well in the G League. So like those, and he hadn't played basketball, I think, since high school or whatever. So like those lacrosse guys can obviously play other sports as well. And I think it just comes down to like there's not like a professional lacrosse league that's that lucrative. So these guys looking to do other stuff.
Yeah,
I looked it up. They make about $30,000 to $40,000 a year.
Yeah, so I mean,
a lot of those professional lacrosse guys too, they have a normal job and they just play lacrosse on the side.
Yeah, it's just not
crazy.
popular enough of a sport.
Right.
I mean, he could make some serious money playing in the NFL, which I would imagine someone's going to give him a shot. I mean,
yeah, he can make that in a week or a month, depending on where he ends up in the
Makes that on practice squad. He makes more than that on the practice squad. $250.
Right.
So yeah, no, he's a crazy athlete, but honestly, I don't know. They might have done it without him too. I mean, their backup was a great player. I mean,
Malik Mitchell, man. We've talked about Malik Mitchell on the podcast the last couple of weeks. That guy is good. I mean, he's a Kent State transfer. He played quarterback at Kent State. I mean, I don't know if they're going to miss a beat next year.
Yeah, no, and he's definitely a more polished passer than Bernhardt too. I mean, you saw some of those plays, like some of those passes were just explosive, and Ferris didn't really even need to pass, but I mean,
no, they racked up almost 600 yards rushing.
Yeah.
Excuse me, almost 500. They had 460 yards rushing. They averaged 10 yards per rush.
Yeah, no, and I mean, that O-line's dominant. Like, Dylan Pasquale won the Gene Upshaw Award for the best lineman in D2. He's one of their tackles, and all those other guys. I mean, they're a bunch of 6-year guys that, I mean, are big, strong, grown men, and just push people around like that. That's a good O-line, like, to just dominate that. You know what I mean? And Division II college football, and just like push people around, and like Valdosta wanted no part of it by the end of the game, like, at all.
It was truly like coming from an offensive head. When you like draw plays on Monday or Tuesday, and you're like, all right, like, if this is blocked perfectly, you're going to be one-on-one with the safety. And Jared Bernhardt was literally like one-on-one with dudes all game. And it was like, yeah, good luck.
Well, and like we've kind of mentioned, coming from lacrosse, his level of skill in the open field is just, I don't think you see a lot of guys like that who have that kind of elusiveness, that kind of footwork, that quickness, explosive speed out in the open field. I think that's just a testament to his lacrosse career and how talented he was in lacrosse. I think it just prepped him to run that triple option, be more patient, more daring, and far more dangerous in the open field, which can be very difficult. All of us have played defense, mostly Brett and Arnouts and I. Kory Schraben played more offense than defense, but like, as a defender who gets caught in the open field, one-on-one trying to make an open field tackle against a guy that quick and elusive, it's tough. It's very tough, especially when you're on your heels. I mean, it's so hard.
Right. And yeah, he's got like moves and like counter to moves, and like, what I mean? It's just like, no, dude, that's like a worst nightmare if you were a defender in the open field with Bernhardt. So yeah.
Yeah, no thanks.
You got to have some good discipline to break down and make that tackle.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that'll do it for you.
Might not even be enough. So moving on here, obviously you guys can add anything, but I figured this is kind of going to get near the end, wrapping things up. But where this is kind of tied to Ferris and kind of the conference they're in here, what do we think about the future of the GLIAC here? We've talked a few times in the podcast about the GLIAC. Obviously, 10 years ago at its peak, in terms of a top to bottom conference, was easily one of the most dominant and competitive conferences in all of Division II football, where the bottom team could beat the top team. I mean, I remember my Corey Arnouts would have been your second year, Corey Schraben's third year, and in the GLIAC, that Northern Michigan was the last place team in the North Division and beat Grand Valley at home in Marquette, who was the first place team. It was like 2012, I think that happened. It was just a crazy, it was a crazy year. What do we think about the future of the GLIAC here? The GLIAC, I don't know if you know this, Arnouts. With two Corys, I keep differentiating for people on the podcast, listening on Apple or Spotify. What do you think? What do we think going into next year? The GLIAC is only going to have 7 football teams because after this season, Northwood is leaving for the GMAC, which is pretty much taken. Now it will be 2 Michigan teams in Northwood and Hillsdale, and all of the Ohio schools are officially gone and in the GMAC. Indianapolis left about 8 years ago for the GLVC, and there was a couple other random schools here and there that went away. So now the GLIAC is down to Northern, Michigan Tech, Ferris State, Davenport, Northwood, Saginaw Valley, Wayne State, and Grand Valley.
Northwood.
Or Northwood's leaving, excuse me. So that, minus everyone I said minus Northwood. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's hard to say. And like, I know I've heard some things through the grapevine. I know. Yeah. So Jake Doherty is, I played with him. He played center for Ferris, kind of during my time there. He's a Big Rapids native, and he works at the athletic department with the university. And so I've talked to him some, and then also my sister Madison, who ran at Northwood, and she knows the Wayne State assistant AD. So I've kind of heard some rumblings either way of, potentially like Wayne going, Wayne going to like the Pioneer League, which is an FCS but non-scholarship
Really?
for football, and then GV going to the Ohio Valley Conference with like Eastern Kentucky, I think.
Dayton.
Youngstown State.
Yeah, I get those because there's that and there's the Missouri Valley. So I get them mixed up. But
Dayton's in the same one as Belleville.
Dayton's in the Pioneer League, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So
Butler.
Butler's Pioneer League,
yeah.
I think.
There's Pioneer, yeah. Those are all non-scholarship.
Yeah. But yeah, and so GV would go to the OVC, which is scholarship FCS. But I think they do well in there. So I don't know. That's just kind of through the rumor mill. I don't know if that
would be quite an undertaking for something like that to happen.
Yeah. So
those poor UP schools.
Yeah, Michigan Tech and Northern.
Join like Minnesota Mankato's conference.
They would have to go to the Minnesota League if they're going to stay D2. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know where any of those things are, as far as that. I mean, and I don't know what Ferris would do. I mean, it's kind of hard. I know. And even like, I know next year, Ferris, I want to say still maybe looking for their first 2 or 3 games or 2 or 3 games low. And just can't like necessarily find opponents. Who
would want to play them right now?
Yeah. I mean, like I know Jake Doherty, like I mentioned with the athletic department, they said they were reaching out to like some of the Illinois FCS schools and stuff like that. And,
even Grand Valley this year, I don't know if you know this, Corey, Grand Valley, their third game of the year played Wisconsin lacrosse, who is in the same D3 conference as Whitewater.
Grand Valley State did in football?
Grand Valley, their third game in football this year was Wisconsin lacrosse, who actually went to the playoffs and went 2 rounds deep into the D3 playoffs.
There was a COVID cancellation.
That was Grand Valley's first game against Edinburgh. That game was just flat out canceled. Their week 3 game was Wisconsin lacrosse.
Oh, I didn't know that. Was it competitive at all?
Yeah, they beat them 45-24, but I mean, that's still pretty impressive. I mean, with how good Grand Valley is, that just kind of shows you how good that D3 conference in Wisconsin is.
Imagine you're in Davenport and then everybody leaves D2 and you're just like, we suck again.
Yeah, Davenport just became a program like 5 or 6 years ago. Seriously.
Yeah. So, I don't know what'll happen. I mean, for Ferris, I mean, obviously we're really talented right now and could compete at the FCS level against a lot of teams. But, I mean, obviously that's a decision on like the scholarships and more budget and all that sort of stuff. And that's probably, honestly, if Wayne makes that move to the Pioneer, why they would do that, right? Because you don't have to, give all that scholarship money out in football, which is, could be a huge burden for a lot of colleges and stuff like that. But I don't know what'll happen. It'll be interesting to see kind of how it develops. It's kind of sad in a way because
the GLIAC has been around for like almost 50 years.
Right. Yeah, it's so good for so long, and it was like 14, 16 team conference for a long time. That was really good. So
had 2 divisions. You had divisional champions at one point.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So we'll kind of see. We'll see how all that plays out and stuff. But it's unfortunate. But at least the GLIAC got another national champ. I don't know. I mean, I was at the Ferris Grand Valley game. I was like, oh, this could be, if Grand Valley leaves to go FCS, maybe the last or at least the last playoff game, Ferris versus Grand Valley, or potentially, or one of the last matchups, even if they do, end up doing that, which was weird to think about. But who knows? I don't know, other than just what I've heard.
Rumors,
potential, rumors. So could all be false, but who knows?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of plays out. And with Ferris State, I'm sure not going away in terms of their dominance anytime soon. I mean, I'm sure Grand Valley will still sit there and compete with them. I mean, Grand Valley didn't have a bad year by any means. I mean, they still won 11 games. Be interesting to see, going forward how things kind of play out. But
right.
So kind of wrapping things up here is Ferris State, the 2021 team, one of the greatest D2 football teams ever.
I'd say, you can't argue against Bernhardt, and it also helps with COVID because you have 25-year-old men still playing football. So. But I mean, loophole, I think they are. I would say they are.
Yeah, especially considering that, like, if you were to pluck them out of time and pluck any other D2 team out of time, especially with the consideration Kory just said of like everyone being a year older, right? Like, I mean, you just got like grown men. Like that O-line is, you know what I mean? Like I played with those guys, you know, like freaking 5 years ago. You know what I mean? Like it's just crazy. Like they've been at college football for a long time. And so, yeah, it's hard to say. Yeah. I mean, this Ferris team is really, really good. Yeah. So I know those Grand Valley teams in the 2000s were good.
Yeah.
The Northwest Missouri State team I played in 2016. We lost to them 35-20. It was a relatively competitive game for the most part, but that was by far the closest game they had all year. Other than that, including the national championship, I don't think they had a game within 25 points. So that was another great team in D2. So, I mean, there's been good ones. It's hard to say, but I definitely think like Kory's point with the COVID year, you know, it'd be hard, you know, it'd be hard for any other team.
Two stats, and I know Brett doesn't like stats, but I was just going to add two stats really quick. Brett, I know you don't like stats, but I just want to add these two stats. Ferris State, if they didn't kneel the clock out at the end of the game, if they scored one more touchdown, would have set the all-time championship game record for points. They were, you know, classy and just kneeled it away. They had the largest margin of victory in a D2 championship game since 1997. So, I mean, those two things to me really stand out as impressive things in terms of how dominant they were.
Yeah. No, yeah, the mantra like all week, I know, well, at least between like me and my group chat, and this alum was like dogs by 50, you know, and so they got close.
Sorry, Brett, what were you going to add?
I'm going to say they're the second best team of all time.
Ooh, who's your first?
Ooh.
I am going to go with the 1974 Central Michigan Chippewas as the best D2 team of all time. And the reason being my father played for that team.
Oh.
And I've heard stories about the guys that were on that team. They had a number of guys that went to the NFL. They went 12-1 that year. Their opening loss was to Kent State in week 1. Yes, it was still Division II at the time, but they ended up winning the national championship 54-14. So a very lopsided national championship where they beat Delaware. But to make it interesting, Ferris has a very good team. I'm going to go with the 1974 Chippewas.
Does your dad have a national championship ring?
He does. Yep.
I don't know if I've ever seen your dad's national championship ring. Where does he keep it?
He keeps it in his dresser at home. If you heard my brother's speech at my wedding, Cole,
I did.
He pretty much gave me shit because he said he's the only Johnson man that doesn't have a ring. My dad has a national championship ring. Kiefer and I have conference championship rings, and he goes, "Well, you're going to get the one that really matters," which was cool. He tied it back, and I got no football rings.
I do remember that. That's crazy to think about, though, how most of the MAC at the time, because D2, we talked about this on our podcast. I don't remember what episode, but Division II, the NCAA didn't split up into divisions until it was like 1972 or 1973. And D2 at the time, I think a lot of the MAC schools were all D2.
They were. Yeah. Take a look tomorrow or whenever you get a chance. Just look up their schedule. It's pretty interesting. They had a lot of people that attended their games too. Upwards of 25,000 some games.
You know who won the Division II national championship the very next year?
Hillsdale College.
Northern Michigan.
Oh, with Steve Mariucci.
Yeah, they beat Western Kentucky 16-14.
Okay.
Oh.
That's not surprising. Former Lions coach.
Yeah, he was wasn't he like roommates with Izzo at Northern? Right?
Yeah, they're like best buddies.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy. Yeah, I have the list pulled up of all the D2 national champions, and if you scroll through the list, it's crazy how many of the teams in the 70s and 80s that were in the national title are now FCS schools or mid-major schools.
Right.
1A. Crazy. Yeah, yep. Interesting how that works.
Yeah, and NDSU had a reign in D2, I think, like early 2000s, I want to say.
They did. North Dakota State, before they dominated FCS, was winning quite a few D2 national titles. Yeah, they did.
At that time, when Central won the national championship for D2, was in Sacramento, California.
Oh God.
It says they had 14,000 people there. Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Could you imagine people from
television? Then you had to go there to watch it.
But could you imagine people from Delaware and Michigan traveling all the way out to California to see a
weird?
D2 football game? That is crazy.
Like the Oregon Trail, everyone heading out there.
There was casualties along the way.
They all had to take trains.
Yeah, they all took a train.
The quarterback caught malaria.
Yeah. Game of attrition. Oh, God.
Well, all right, guys. Do we have anything else we want to add here on Ferris State football? Otherwise, we can wrap things up.
Just appreciate Arnouts' time and his busy math-ridden schedule.
Oh gosh. I miss chatting with you guys, and the podcast is good. Yeah, like I said, I've been listening. Like it's it's really cool, and I think like especially you guys talking about all different levels and things like that. Different levels of college football and then high school as well is really cool because a lot of media reports. Obviously like the Big Ten, the Lions, different things like that. But I think it's a real cool focus. So appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. We look forward to next football season when we can really kind of dig into, a full season of D3, D2, mid-major, and high school football in Michigan. Because like you just mentioned, everyone talks Big Ten and NFL. But, obviously we're going to talk Big Ten and NFL. But we kind of look forward to kind of uplifting and talking about some of the levels of football in the state of Michigan that maybe other people don't talk about so much.
Yep, definitely.
Well, Corey Arnouts, before we let you go, is there anything you want to plug or encourage people to share, take a look at, anything they can follow you on social media?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not super huge on any social media other than LinkedIn. So you guys can follow me on LinkedIn. Go ahead.
Like a true professional.
If you want some good professional development connections, you guys can connect with me on LinkedIn. But no, I'm on Twitter and Instagram, different things like that as well. But I guess the main one, obviously congrats to the national champions this year, Ferris State. That was really cool. I'm proud of all those guys. And if anyone, like I said, with the officiating side of things, if anyone's interested, feel free to reach out to me, and I can kind of give you the lowdown of what it takes or what the process is and things like that. So
I'll get with Kory here, and I'll add in the description on the podcast stores and YouTube in the description of the video and the episode a link if Kory, you want to share with me a link that anyone listening interested in reffing can go to and sign up or look into it more. I can add that in there.
All right. Awesome.
Well, thank you for listening along. This is episode 5, Great Lakes State Football Podcast, talking everything state of Michigan football. Don't miss anything that we put out. Follow us on Twitter at GLSF Ball, BALL, Instagram at Great Lakes State Football. And please leave us a 5-star review on the Apple Podcast Store, Spotify Podcast Store. Leave a nice review like Kory has left us a nice endorsement in this episode. Subscribe on YouTube. Please subscribe, like, share, comment. And don't miss anything Great Lakes State football. We'll be back next week with another episode talking about everything in the beautiful state of Michigan, everything football. Go Green and go Chargers.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.